Welcome back to Cheddar, everyone. Well, it may have slipped some people's minds with everything else going on, but this is, in fact, a presidential election year, 2020. A new Quinnipiac national poll has former Vice President Joe Biden beating President Trump 50% to 39% come this November. Joining me now to break all things Joe Biden down is Peter Hamby, who is the host of Good Luck America at Snapchat and a contributing writer for Vanity Fair. Peter, great to speak with you here, and thanks so much for joining us here on the show. We had Biden's campaign senior advisor, SYMONE Sanders, on yesterday. She had this to say about the criticism that Joe Biden is hiding out in his basement. Take a look.
We believe, though, that we're winning. If you look at the polls, if you look at what folks are saying, being at home hasn't hurt Joe Biden because he is still able to communicate his message to voters. And voters, frankly, don't like what they're seeing from Donald Trump at the White House podium.
I want to get your reaction. Do you agree that the strategy is actually working for Biden's camp?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's a strategy or not, it is working. The political class, the sort of commentariat, has generally either dismissed Joe Biden or been wrong about Joe Biden since the beginning of his campaign last January. He was consistently atop the polls nationally and in a bunch of early primary states until you got into that Iowa, New Hampshire period, and he had his comeback in South Carolina. But look, any presidential campaign in April, May, June of an election year, whether it's an incumbent or not, is going to be in this transition period. Sorry, not when you're an incumbent. When you win a primary, you transition. You're scaling up. The Biden campaign is hiring. They're raising money. They basically raised as much as Trump and the Republican National Committee in April. People are choosing Joe Biden in spite of the fact that he's stuck in his basement. There's a lot of armchair quarterbacking about his strategy, about his digital campaign, about what this coronavirus pandemic is doing to his campaign. It's not ideal. He would rather be out there in swing states campaigning, getting earned media, collecting information from the people coming to his rallies, having volunteers knock on doors. At the same time, as the Quinnipiac poll showed today, his widest lead of the campaign is right now. He's winning across every age bracket. He is rolling among African American voters. He's up 30 points among women. That is really, really, really hard for Donald Trump to overcome. So look, Joe Biden is not the sexiest, most electrifying candidate. He's not Barack Obama. He's not going to release a cool Spotify playlist and go on the coolest show on Netflix and really come off as this guy that you want to hang with. But so far, so good for Joe Biden.
Okay, so let's dive further into that, because if Trump's strategy is continuing to be, as we saw in 2016 and leading up to the 2020 elections, rallying as much as possible, telling your voters to come out and those who may be on the fence to come out, and telling them to liberate themselves so that they can show up at these rallies in spite of any type of medical risk that may be there. Whereas Biden's strategy is, hey, stay home, we can address you through technology. Which of these strategies do you think wins out?
Well, this strategy that Trump is talking about, Brad, I think you're right. I think Trump is going to maybe end up moving ahead with the Republican convention in Charlotte, whereas Democrats who have their convention in Milwaukee are probably going to have to scale it back and maybe figure out a way to do it, virtually in some way or some kind of hybrid. Trump is going to not be afraid to go to Orlando, to go to Dallas, to go to Columbus, Ohio, and do a big rally in a way that Democrats who, at least in our political debate, Democrats are the ones aligning themselves with the most cautious science, and Trump seems not to be. And, we live in an era of partisanship and motivated reasoning where people take their social and scientific cues, for fortunately or unfortunately, from political leaders. So, look, most Americans want to be staying home right now. 60% roughly in whatever state, like, say that they think that the stay-at-home orders wherever they are pretty good. I think Trump, his strategy with going out to rallies and doing things in person is in keeping with his strategy of just motivating the base and kind of winning this time the same way he won last time, which is basically an inside straight. Can you motivate enough people and have them be passionate enough in the right places, to win a marginal victory in the upper Midwest, and in places like North Carolina, Arizona, Georgia, Texas, that wins him the White House again. But look, I think most Americans, again, are okay being at home right now. The question is, are certain governors going to let absentee balloting expand? Are they going to send ballot applications out in the mail or even ballots themselves to
Right.
help vote? Because I do think that this isn't going away by November. People, I think many, many millions of people will certainly vote. I think turnout might even be higher than it was last time, but there's going to be a lot of people who are afraid to go to the polls, and that could be a variable in certain places.
Well, Trump has talked about defunding some of the states that have not mailed out, and let's be clear about this, they haven't mailed out ballots for mail in voting. They've simply mailed out the applications for registration. That is it for the mail in voting as well. That we know that there's been bills on Capitol Hill, there's been talks of funding more of this as well. And so, as you're kind of watching that effort, where do you expect that to actually net out for one candidate versus another, as many states might have to relook at where their polling sites can be at?
Yeah, I mean, look, I am dubious that Congress is going to come to a solution over how to fund this and create some sort of universal parameters for how to vote during a pandemic. And it's going to come down once again to a patchwork of state and local election officials making these decisions.
Hmm.
There's a good bit of doublespeak in what Trump is saying that we saw today. He tweeted at the Secretary of State of Michigan that it was illegal to send out 7 million ballots. Of course, he meant applications, whether he meant that or not. That's not illegal. And at the same time, look at the Republican Party of Texas. Look at the Republican Party of Pennsylvania. These are Republican state parties that are also sending out ballot applications to Republican voters and telling people that, telling their voters that, hey, like it might not be safe to vote this fall, figure out a way to vote from home. So
Right.
Republicans are doing this too. And the only other point I'll make on this to more directly answer your question, Brad, is that academic study after academic study has really shown that there's no partisan bias in terms of at-home voting or not. This
Yeah.
I think a lot of Republicans think that if you allow more people to vote, you expand access. That makes it easier for Democrats to get their people out, their sort of drop-off voters. There's actually not a lot of academic evidence that exists, and it's not just Democratic states like Washington and Oregon that have mail-in balloting. Utah
Right.
has mail-in balloting. Colorado is a swing state; they have mail-in balloting. So it can be done, and at least the academic research shows that it doesn't favor one party over another.
Kind of rapid fire on this last one. As you've seen, former Vice President Joe Biden doing his focus group testing and teasing some of the potential names floated online: Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Kamala Harris, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and Stacey Abrams. What are the pros and cons of these choices? And then, just lastly, as well, here, is he better off waiting on announcing his VP pick until closer to the convention?
Yeah, that's a great question. I interviewed Joe Biden last week for my Snapchat show, Good Luck America. I didn't ask him who he was thinking about, but I asked him what characteristics is he looking for, and he obviously, referred back to his relationship with President Obama, and he said Obama trusted me when I was in the room on things that he wasn't good at, right, or things where he didn't quite get, like some foreign policy things, relationships in the Senate. Biden said he's looking for that same thing. Who's someone that I can lean on and trust, who's an expert? A lot of Democrats texted me after that and said that sounds like he's talking about someone like Elizabeth Warren, right, who would compensate in some ways for his vulnerabilities on the left. She is somebody that you could certainly hand a large policy portfolio off to. I think at the end of the day, CBS News did a poll about this. The number one thing they want in a VP pick is someone who is competent. That brings up the idea of like someone who's had governing experience on a federal or statewide level, someone who maybe has been through the gauntlet of a campaign before. Kamala Harris and
Right.
Elizabeth Warren have. I think a lot of people on the inside and the sort of gossip circles that I'm in think Kamala and Warren are probably at the top of the list. Everyone else, it's hard to see what exactly they get you. But Biden's number one thing is he has to excite drop-off voters and younger voters. And how do you do that?
That's right.
And that's to be seen. And it's going to be hard to announce a VP pick in the middle of the pandemic too, right? Joe Biden has a hard time out there as is. A VP pick and announcing that typically commands a week or two of media attention. Everyone's covering it. Everyone's talking about it. How do you punch through with politics at this moment? And I think
Right.
that makes it, more of a chance that he picks someone who may be already a known commodity, right? Because they don't have to build up a narrative on them already.
Absolutely. Peter Hamby, would love to have you back to continue the discussion at a later date. Host of Good Luck America at Snapchat, contributing writer for Vanity Fair. Thanks so much, Peter.